What is up, everybody? I hope you are having a fantastic evening. The 49ers just made a blockbuster trade. All right. Welcome back to Last Second Sports. We are giving you our take down to the last second. And it's Tuesday, which means I got my guy, So Real. Sunil in the building. What's up, Sunil?
One, that might have been the greatest intro you've ever done. I didn't know if that was planned or if that just happened by accident, but that's the way you need to do it from this point on because that was epic. Two, my boy Shanahan, I think, had a rough game last week. So in honor of Shanahan, I went top button gang like my guy likes to do. So we're top button gang today in
Yeah,
honor of Kyle
I
Shanahan.
remember for a while when you were doing shows with Grant, you would do the top button gang. That was the way that you rolled. It's been a
Mm-hmm.
while, so I do enjoy that you brought this back. I was obviously joking. It was not a blockbuster trade, but the 49ers did make a trade. And this is kind of what I expected. In fact, about an hour before they made the trade, I had put out a short saying, I think the 49ers are going to make a trade for a defensive end. I don't foresee them trading anything within the first 4 rounds to make it happen, which meant guys like Kayvon Thibodeau probably not going to happen. Even the Jets players probably not going to happen. It might be somebody like an Arden Key or a Mozzie Smith, something like that. They ended up trading for Keon White. They traded a 6th-round pick. They got Keon White and a 7th-round pick from the Patriots. Keon White, 6'5", 285 pounds. He was a 2nd-round pick. He's had 6 sacks in 3 years, including 5 sacks last year, none this year. And he's under contract through 2026. Before this trade, the 49ers only had 2 healthy defensive ends on the roster. Talk to me about this trade. What are your thoughts about it? And do you think the 49ers are done? We can talk about that as well.
Yeah, and I think that's the more important question. But yeah, I mean, this is like the typical 49er trade, right? For a defensive end, late round pick. They've done this, multiple years. And this is the Kosterick probably type guy. I'm sure this is a guy that they see some upside. Obviously, 5 sacks in his second year is not anything to downplay. I think that's obviously decent production. This is a guy comes into the system, will definitely probably get some run right away just because there aren't enough bodies. And has a chance to develop under Kosterick. They have him. This kind of fits the timeline that Shanahan was saying, where they want players that could play this year and next year as well. Is it a needle mover? Obviously, I don't think that you could get a needle mover for a 6th-round draft pick. However, I think this fits into kind of what this year has been for the 49ers. They're not spending big on any kind of off-season additions. They're not, they're managing their budget. They're keeping their spreadsheets, where they want to be, being disciplined with, their resources. And I think this kind of fits that. It's obviously a name that I don't think anybody was really talking about. But it is, I think it makes a lot of sense as far as what the 49ers were saying they were looking for if they were going to make a move. Now, to the second part, are they done? I don't think they are, man. I think that they're still probably out there. I think they could potentially make another move for a player in the same kind of compensation, for the same type of compensation, same type of prove it type of guy who just maybe needs a new kind of fresh scenery to see what they could get out of. But right now they don't have enough bodies, Jesse, and I think they want to upgrade as much as possible, younger, healthier, with potential upside. And I think they might have another, guy or two in mind to try to make that happen.
Well, I'm going to read his scouting report for those that may not be familiar with Keon White. He was drafted in 2023. He started his career as a 2-star recruit, went to Old Dominion before transferring to Georgia Tech. His final year in college, he had 14 tackles for loss and 7.5 sacks. Here's what they said about him. First of all, they compared him to LJ Collier, and he was the seventh edge coming out of that draft, according to CBS Sports. The strengths: strong as an ox, will constantly push offensive tackles into the QB's lap. Not the bendiest in the class, but still shows the ability to dip around the edge and force the QB to step up in the pocket. Above average lateral quickness with good burst allows him to run with athletic QBs in space. Constantly shows the ability to make plays behind the line of scrimmage in the open field. Can walk offensive tackles back into the pocket when he gets too high in pass rush sets. Can't block him with a tight end only. He has a high motor, uses his hands well to disengage with the offensive tackles. Tenacious from first step to last. At 280 pounds, he can line up as a traditional edge or in a reduced role. His weaknesses are he doesn't have an array of pass rush moves, and he turned 24 in January of 2022. So he was a little bit of an older player, obviously coming out, and not necessarily a great pass rusher. So sounds a lot actually like maybe the first round pick that the 49ers had in this year's draft. But either way, they certainly needed another edge, and maybe at the very least he can help stop the run. We'll see how it plays out. But maybe not the most exciting thing, but it is a depth piece. And to your point, maybe the 49ers aren't done. Maybe they can make another move, get maybe a pure pass rusher at the edge position. Maybe they can use Keon and Michael Williams in like a NASCAR package, put them at defensive tackle on third downs and allow them to rush the quarterback if they can go get another edge opposite of Huff, and make this thing a little bit interesting. So we'll see how it plays out. Speaking of trades, they may not be done, but also they may trade one of their own players. Should they look to trade Jawan Jennings, in your opinion?
Yeah, this is a tough one because I think Jennings has been such a fan favorite for so long and been such a, uh, um, just the definition of what a 49ers wide receiver should be. And I'm kind of in two minds about this, Jesse, because like the 49ers are, injured or don't have enough bodies at defensive end, that's the same thing at wide receiver. It's not like there's a whole bunch of talent there at wide receiver. So, but there's another thing that comes, like obviously Jennings and the 49ers were at, odds this offseason about contract. I think the 49ers made the best move, obviously, based off of where Jennings' production is right now, not to give him the contract that he was looking for. And I think maybe Jennings possibly didn't, maybe play his cards right because there was more money that he could have taken, but he kind of bet on himself and that's not working out. The downside is he could leave for nothing at the end of this season, which most likely is going to happen based off of, the trajectory that things are going. But I think that the opposite end is you trade him. Well, what are you replacing him with? Right? Who is this guy that's going to come back there? I don't think you could really trade him unless you know exactly what's happening with Brandon Ayuk. I don't think you could trade him until you know exactly what's happening with Ricky Pearsall, because at the end of the day, they just don't have, the resources at wide receiver where they could get rid of somebody with, a guy coming up. We don't know what Jordan Watkins is or how healthy he's going to be. And like I said, we don't know what's going on with Ayuk. We don't know what's going on with Pearsall. So you might need to hold on for him just as kind of a safety net, just because, there's not that much healthy talent left at wide receiver.
That's true. At some point, there's like, when you have a player like Jawan Jennings who plays with the high intensity that he plays with and kind of brings that nastiness to your team, at some point, the extracurricular stuff outweighs the talent level. And I think that's where we're at with Jennings right now. He was always good and good enough to where it's like, well, if he got a penalty here or there, he usually got in somebody else's head. It was worth it. But at some point, like, it goes the other way. And right now, I'm going to give you a stat. I read this yesterday from Josh Duval. Out of the, I think it was 112 receivers that have at least 25 targets this year in the NFL. The passer rating when targeting Jawan Jennings is 38, which is 110th out of 112 qualified receivers. Just for context, Sunil, if 49ers quarterbacks drop back and threw the ball in the dirt every single time, their quarterback rating or passer rating rather would be 39.6. So actually higher than if they target Jawan Jennings.
Yikes.
I think we're to that point with Jawan Jennings where it's probably not worth all the extracurricular activity.
Yeah, but I mean, but who do you trot out there? You still need to trot out 3 or 4 receivers a game, Jesse. Who are those receivers?
Well, I mean, Ricky Pearsall should be back within a week or two. Ayuk probably back within a week or two. I mean, at this point, like you got CMC, you got Kittle. Um, Obviously, you've got Robinson. Maybe get the rookie out there and Watson, and then you got Kendrick Bourne. I mean, I don't know. I just sometimes as addition by subtraction, you're probably going to get like a 6th-round pick for him. Hell, if they would have traded him for this edge rusher, I probably would have been like, yeah, good trade. I'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, I see your point. Like, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if he does get traded. I think that ultimately, it's like, are we trying to win this season or are we not? Right. And I think that ultimately they're not going to give up huge assets to get someone. It's just if you think that what's better for your team, having a 6th-round draft pick for next season or having Juwan Jennings this season, I think that's the judgment call that people need to make. You know, we don't know if Ayuk is coming back in a week or two. We don't know even if Pearsall comes back, how long he's going to be able to stay healthy with that knee. Like if either of those end up going down in the middle of a run, who you're picking up somebody off the couch, off a practice squad, you know, to really play meaningful ball. Can we really trust Kendrick Bourne to be wide receiver 1 on a team that's trying to make the playoffs? I don't know. Like he's had some good games with Mac Jones. But if you think Brock Purdy is coming back, which all signs are pointing he's coming back in the next week or two, we do know that his chemistry with Jennings is much better than Mac Jones' chemistry with Jennings. So there is, you know, I guess silver lining there that potentially we could get a better performing Jennings with Brock Purdy as quarterback, you know, and go back to 3rd and 1, which really was defined between Brock Purdy and Juwan Jennings.
Yeah, I really like Jawan Jennings. Him and Dre Greenlaw were like 2 tone setters for this team for a couple years there. One on offense, one on defense. I think they both had a similar mindset. It's really nothing personal against Jennings at all. I still like what he brings to the table for the most part. I just think that it's probably run its course, unfortunately, here with the 49ers. You know, he really wanted to get paid this offseason. He was injured, obviously, and then came back right before the season started. He's injured now, it sounds like. I think the 5 broken ribs is a little far-fetched. I really genuinely don't think he would be playing with 5 broken ribs, but I do think he is hurt. And he probably does have a broken rib or 2 for sure. So with that being said, I know that's tough to play with, but when you have a fit the way that he did in that Tampa game, and then you go out there in the second half, you cost the team 4 points, you start getting the ball thrown your way, you do nothing with it. And then in this game, you have 2 drops, a face mask penalty, and then he makes 1 catch. And it's like, oh, see, there's the Jawan Jennings. You guys should all eat your words. Like he made a catch that is pretty routine for him. Like, I don't understand where all the love is coming from. Like, yes, he's been awesome for the 49ers, but he's most likely not going to be a 49er next year. He's not helping them by the stat that I threw out. Right now, he's doing more harm than good. If you can get something for him, I'd be willing to do it, but that's just me.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if they do. But like I said, I could see both sides.
Kendrick Lamar says 3rd and Jagon. Not gonna work here anymore anyway. All right, listen. The 49ers had a pretty rough game this last week against the Texans. You know, it's interesting because we did this schedule breakdown like 2 weeks ago, and I had the 49ers finishing 9-8 the rest of the way. And the Texans game was really kind of that breaking point where I had them losing. So I was curious to see. But when the game came up, I did. I picked the 49ers to win. I thought that the 49ers would be able to get it done this week. There was no Nico Collins. That offensive line was absolutely atrocious for the Texans. And I just figured the 49ers would have enough juice to get it done. They would get in field goal range enough. It would kind of be a field goal contest. And I was wrong, man. The Texans were on absolute fire. They did everything right. They ran the ball well. CJ Stroud picked the 49ers apart. The 49ers went back to being the 49ers of old where they could not run the ball. We can have the weekly CMC conversation if you want. I feel like I'm winning right now. But either way, it wasn't a good showing for the 49ers all the way around, except for maybe the special teams, oddly enough. So do you think this was like a 1 week, hey, it is what it is. They're still 5-3, no big deal? Or do you feel like the 49ers got exposed a little bit and maybe the 49ers have been playing a little bit above their weight class? When you look at this game overall, what do you think it is? Did the Texans expose the 49ers or is it just a 1 week loss? We're moving on.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that the Texans are uniquely positioned to really, you know, especially on defense with that defensive line, to pick apart what are the 49ers' weakness, which is that offensive line, right? So I think that obviously played a big role in what the 49ers offense could or couldn't do. But I have to say, people look at that Jaguars loss and say that, um, it's looking like a better loss than before where they were. I don't think it is anymore. Jaguars don't look like that dominant team that they were like maybe through the first 5 games. But I think this is a game that probably would look worse as time goes on because Houston hasn't been playing well. And I wonder, Jesse, if this was a combination of D'Amico Ryans really, wanting to, getting his players up to play against his former team and, his former coaching staff and things like that, along with just, I think, the worst coaching game that Shanahan put together, as well as, Saleh, I think, had, they just, nothing looked good. Let's put it that way. It was like the worst game that the 49ers have played all season and the best game that the Texans have played all season. So that's obviously not a good combination of things. But, when it's all said and done, the game still was winnable if they executed in a few key moments during the game. So I guess to directly answer your question, I mean, I think that the 49ers have been playing above their weight class just because of the injuries that they had there, but I don't think that necessarily they've fallen off of a cliff after this loss, right? I think that the schedule still bodes well for them. They still have offensive pieces that are coming back that should help, namely Brock Purdy, Ayuk, Pearsall, all these names that we just listed. I think that the defense won't have back-to-back games where they're that bad. Like they just don't have a defensive line right now. So hopefully they're doing that through the free agent market or trade market, I should say. Sorry, not free agent market. So I think it's to be determined. I mean, obviously it was the worst game that they played. It didn't look good, but they are still 5-3. They still have, an easy schedule, and they still have, people coming that should make the team better. So I think that there's still optimism there, but there's a lot that the team needed to do better, and nobody was trying to act like this wasn't just a terrible game, right? Shanahan said it, all the players said it. Like nobody's sitting here and saying that there was, that it was just the other team. They know that they played really, really bad, and hopefully they'll get better.
I don't know if I've ever been 8 weeks into a season and been more confused as to what a team is or is not. Like I genuinely week to week, I'm like, yeah, they're good. Now they're not so good. It's really hard, especially with a schedule like the 49ers. It's really hard to gauge who they are. But what I can say is one thing that is becoming a trend is that they cannot consistently run the ball. They cannot consistently stop the run. They cannot consistently force turnovers, and they cannot consistently get after the quarterback. And I would say that more times than not, that means that you've got a pretty mediocre team at best. And that's kind of what I feel the 49ers are. I don't think they were exposed per se this week. I think this week just kind of went back in line with what they have been for most of the season, outside of that Falcons game where they were elite at both. Stopping the run against Bijan Robinson, it was absolutely impressive. Running the ball the way that they did, it was like, oh, a tough week to be in the CMC is lost a step crowd. It's like, well, tough season now, because now 6 of the 7 games, or 7 of the 8 games or whatever, it hasn't been great for CMC as far as the yards per carry thing. And the 49ers are dead last in yards per carry as a team. They are third to last in yards per game rushing. They just are not running the football at a successful clip right now. And when you get into the playoffs, one thing that you always could expect from the 49ers is that they were going to be able to run the football. That's not happening right now. And that's going to be really, really hard to win once you get to the playoffs. We're going to talk about our confidence level in making the playoffs here in a bit. But right now, 2 weeks ago, the 49ers were number 1 in the NFC. We were having these conversations like, oh my gosh, they just beat the Rams. They're number 1 in the NFC, yada, yada, yada. Now they're number 7. They're the 7th seed. So very, very quickly, a couple losses, things have gotten a little bit out of hand. They're 5-3. Now they still have an easy schedule, so we'll see how it plays out. But this team right now is pretty mediocre. And it's not necessarily their fault. I mean, a lot of injuries, big injuries. Bosa, Fred Warner, Purdy's been out. Ayuk still hasn't played a game. Mustafa just came back. Huff's out now for a couple weeks. Ricky Pearsall. So they've had to battle through injuries, but the reality is they're still, no matter what, they're not going to get back Fred Warner. They're not going to get back Bosa. It's going to be tough to overcome that long term. So we'll see what the 49ers are able to do. But ultimately, man, I think that the 49ers they're not as bad as they showed against the Texans, but they're not as good as they showed against the Falcons either. They're somewhere in between is really the way that I see. And it's like, they literally had their best game of the season followed by their worst. And usually when you're taking an average of a team or a grade in college, something like that, you remove the high score, you remove the low score, and that's what you are. I think the 49ers, if you remove the Falcons game and you remove the Texans game, they kind of are what they are, right? And we'll see how it plays out the rest of the season.
Yeah, but Jesse, you remove those 2 games, they still beat the Rams, they still beat the Seahawks. Both of those teams are also in like playoff teams. If the
Can I
playoffs
ask
were
you
to
a
start
question
today.
though? If they
Go
were to
ahead.
play the Rams, if they were going into and play, well, I'll ask you this: they're playing the Rams in 2 weeks. Are you going to pick the Rams, or are you going to pick the 49ers?
I'm picking the Rams, but I'm not
Same
picking
here.
the Rams necessarily because they're that much better. I'm picking the Rams because of the circumstances around that game, right? So like ultimately for me, I think that the Rams are a better team than the 49ers, but the 49ers did beat them, right? So they
They
have
did.
that potential to be able to beat them. So I also don't think that the Rams are as good as I thought the Rams were going to be going into this season, right? I don't think they're playing as well as what I think both of us expected the Rams to be. I don't think there's some world beaters that I thought they potentially could be this season. So, and they did beat the Seahawks. I would still take them to beat the Seahawks once they play again. I'm picking the 49ers to beat the Seahawks. So yeah, they had a bad game. It looks bad. They're going against the Giants this week. If they lose this game, then I think you're absolutely right. But I think there's potential for them to look really, really good against the Giants. And then all of a sudden we're back to, oh my God, this team is, this team is outperforming what we thought they were going to be, right? The way that they could drop from 2 to 7, Jesse, they could easily jump back up to 2 next week if the schedule pertains and stuff like that. So I think that we need to see both sides of that. It's not that they're terrible, that's why they dropped to 7. That's how close the NFC is right now, where you lose a game, win a game, everybody's like moving up and down that way. So I don't know. Like, do you think if you think they're somewhere in the middle, well, what's the team somewhere in the middle look like? Well, that's a team that beat Seattle. That's a team that beat the Rams. That's a team that has was one score away with Tampa Bay. That's a team that hasn't been blown out. And, I don't know. That's a pretty competitive team in the NFC somewhere in the middle of those two games as well.
Yeah, that's totally fair. Well, I was going to bring up the playoffs and 7th seed. We'll actually get to it in a second. First, let's hear from our sponsor. Let me get Sunil in here. Let me add you over here too. There
Tracking
we
this?
go.
Oh, I kind of want to see
I
how
know.
we're doing.
Listen, I'm not doing so hot, all right, brother. If I win big, you'll know, all right. Just know that. All right, listen. You can get a 100% deposit match using promo code LSS. Link is pinned to the top of the description. And the best thing is right now you get a free $20 entry using promo code LSS. You don't even have to make a deposit, folks. You don't even have to make a deposit. Just use promo code LSS. If you're a first-time user of Sleeper, you're gonna get a free $20 play. It doesn't get better than that. But we got to do some more or lesses. You know what? We'll start this week. All right. With slate clean. Now that we're halfway through the season, we know what we're doing, Sunil. So next week we'll go over our picks from this week. All right.
Okay.
So you let me know what you're seeing. I've got the whole league pulled up here. Let me know what you see that you like. All right. We're
Derrick
gonna go
Henry
nice
against Miami. I like
we're
that
going more.
already.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Here we go. Here we go. Let me know if there's anything else.
McCaffrey against the Giants. He's getting a touch.
Going more. Okay. All right.
They're not gonna. He's not gonna go 2 games without going off.
Okay.
I don't know.
All right.
I
That's
don't know
fair.
if Lamar Jackson's gonna play for sure.
He's playing for sure. He's in. Here's what I want to do with this one. Actually, I want to tease this one down to 25 rushing yards. I don't think he's going to be running a lot because he's coming off of a hamstring injury. But I do think that he'll run enough to at least get 25 yards. I don't know about the 35.5, but I feel good about 25. So we'll go with that. And then let's get at least one more pick in here. Tucker Kraft. He's been on a bender, dude. Oh my gosh. Against Carolina too. Carolina. Yeah, we're going more. I feel good about this one. All right, let's enter that one. Doesn't have to be big. We're going to put 10 on it. 10 to win 41. We'll submit it here. Boom. There we go. So we got CMC anytime TD. We're going more. Lamar Jackson, 25 plus rushing yards. We're going more. Derrick Henry anytime TD. We're taking that. Tucker Kraft, 54.5 receiving yards. I feel good about this one. We'll watch it. We'll monitor it. We'll talk about it next week. Did we win? In fact, you know what? Here we go. I'm going to share it right now. I'm going to share it right now with you so that we can remember exactly what your picks and my picks were. Okay. That's how we're going to do that to make it fair. Because I don't want to be like, hey man, we won. And then it was Coach and I or something like that. You know what I mean? That wouldn't be fair. All right, let's talk about our confidence level. We were just talking about how the 49ers are the 7th seed. A couple of weeks ago, I think we would have both been pretty confident that the 49ers were going to make the playoffs. Here they are. They're the 7th seed. The good news is that the two teams that are right around them, the Bears and the Panthers, they play both those teams. So they win both those games. They're in the driver's seat to at least get in the playoffs. If they lose both those games or either one of those games, it gets pretty tight for the 7th seed. So as it sits right now, knowing the schedule, where the 49ers are at, all the injuries, everything, confidence level from 1 to 10, 10 being the most confident, 1 being the least confident. What's your confidence level that the 49ers are going to make the playoffs?
Yeah, I'm still pretty confident. I'd put it at 8, right?
Okay.
I still think that they're going to be very competitive in the division. And if it's who's gonna be better between the Bears, the 49ers, and the Panthers, I'm going to take the 49ers in that they're going to be able to win more games than those teams. The fact that they're 5-3 in my eyes, Jesse, and they don't have all of their talent back, and they're supposedly gonna get this talent back, meaning a starting quarterback, their 1 and 2 receivers. To me, I think that the trajectory is only rising. So I think that Houston is probably the worst game that they were going to play, and I think it gets better week after week from this point on. Now, do I think that they're going to be the 1 seed or the 2 seed? Probably not, but I do think that they're going to be in the playoffs. Probably a wild card game, and then we'll see what goes from there.
Where do you think they finish in the division? Did they finish ahead of the Seahawks, or did they win the division?
I think they could still win it. I think it's going to be between them and the Rams. I think we'll find out in a couple weeks if they figure out a way to beat the Rams again. I think that they win the division.
They ooh. I feel pretty confident they're going to make the playoffs too. I don't know if I'm at an 8, but I'll go with a 7. But I think they're going to finish third in the division. I think they're going to finish as like they'll probably be the 7th seed, maybe the 6th seed. But that's in. And once you're in, you never know what can happen. Right now, if the playoffs started, they would be slated to play the Eagles. I wouldn't feel great about that one, but let's.
What are the games that you think the Seahawks are winning that the 49ers can't win?
Well, I think the Seahawks are going to beat the 49ers. So I think that's good. Week
So
18
they
is going to come
split.
down. I know, but I think that
But if
they'll
you
be.
think that that just means that there's games that you think the Seahawks, you're confident that the Seahawks going to wait, that the 49ers aren't going to be. They have the same record, right?
Not necessarily. I think they'll probably have the same record going into that game, and whoever wins it that'll be the tiebreaker, right? So
Mm-hmm.
the Seahawks will have one more win. I think they'll be even going into it, and then whoever wins it is going to be second in the division. And I think Seahawks are going to beat them week 18.
Got
Although
it.
it's Sam Darnold, so maybe not. I might change my mind.
Yeah.
Sam Darnold, I think is so buns. I think he's super overrated, but we'll
Yeah.
see. We'll see how it plays out. Okay, well, let me ask you this. Let's go through it real quick. Let's go through all the playoff teams. You tell me who you think the 49ers beat, honestly, straight up.
Yeah.
If they were to play the Packers in the playoffs, who would you have winning that game? Now,
Packers.
let's keep in mind that Purdy's going to be back. We'll assume Pearsall and Ayuk are back as well, right? Like full health, rest of the way, all these teams, Packers or 49ers.
I think the Packers end up getting that.
Okay, I agree. Eagles or 49ers.
Eagles.
I agree. Lions or 49ers.
Man, Dan Campbell as a coach, I feel like will just mess things up. But I think talent wise, I'd pick the Lions.
Okay. Bucks or 49ers.
Bucks.
Rams or 49ers.
I think the 49ers could get them, but I would probably put my money on the Rams.
Okay. And you would take the 49ers over the Seahawks, obviously, right?
Yeah.
Because that was okay. So basically, the 49ers are going to lose in round 1 because they're not going to play the Seahawks round 1.
Yep.
Okay.
No, I mean, I
think
think that's what we've said from the jump. We thought that they were going to be a playoff team, and when you're in the tournament, anything could happen. But we think that most likely they'll be a wild card team, and most likely the team that they play will be, talent wise better just because of all the injuries right now.
Absolutely. Double B Studio says it's over. Niners opponents beat themselves. Interesting. And the Unbeaten with Keith and Bernie says 0-2 against the AFC South. That's tough. That's true. But they only have one loss in the NFC, so that's not so bad. I'll take those AFC South losses for sure. I mean, tiebreaker-wise, the 49ers are sitting very pretty 8 games into the season. He also says the Falcons lost to Miami. Is that even a good win now? I don't think it is. I don't think Falcons
They didn't
are a
have
pretty
Penix
good team.
though.
They didn't, but I mean,
they didn't have Penix
didn't
or
have
Drake London in
either.
that game.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I just don't think the Falcons are very good, especially on the road. They've been 2 completely different teams. I think this was a good question. Jay says, Jesse, what do you think of late bye weeks? I'd rather have a late bye week versus an early bye week. I will say that. Obviously, middle of season bye weeks are the best. This is why I'm picking the Cleveland Browns to beat the 49ers, though. I think playing 13 straight weeks is really, really tough. We're seeing it right now. It's a war of attrition. We're only 8 weeks into this thing, and the 49ers are super banged up. I can't imagine what it's going to look like week 13 after playing that many games in a row. And so for me, that's why I always had the 49ers losing to Cleveland. I just think it's tough. It's tough to have that late of a bye week. However, for playoff wise, it's great because you get that late bye week. You kind of get refreshed, and then you can make that late push if you're not a number 1 seed. And the 49ers aren't going to be a number 1 seed. So I would prefer that over an early bye week. What do you think, Sunil?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's tough because even if they, you say they're playing 13 weeks straight, well, not everybody on this team is playing 13 weeks straight, right? Because there's a lot of injuries, right? There's a lot of new faces. There's a lot of people jumping in midway or missing a few games here and there. So, yeah, I mean, this is just a weird season, man. Like, ideally, I think that obviously playing 13 weeks in a row is tough. I'd rather it be like week 10, week 11 than week, was it 14? But if it's between week 2 or week 14, I'd rather have week 14.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Or I mean, there's
Uh,
nobody that has a bye week 2, but I mean like week
but
5. Week 5,
week
yeah.
four, I don't want a
Hmm.
week 4 bye. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
Uh, Tommy says the Giants is a must win or the season is over. You agree the Giants is a must win? I kind of agree with him, man. This is a team that you got to beat
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about must win because obviously mathematically it could
for
they still
sure.
could win, but yeah, I mean, I think that if we if they lose to the Giants, we come back and ask the same confidence question. I don't think we stay at a 7-8.
Yeah, well, listen, they lose to the Giants and lose to the Rams. All of a sudden, you're 5-5, and you're not feeling too good. So
Right.
I agree. I think the Giants is that's the one you got to win. Javid says Miles Garrett versus McKivitz, the horror, 5 sacks
Oh, and
last
he
week.
paid that
That
in
was
pounds. Is this a overseas? Like,
yeah,
dang,
it is. It
nice.
is. We got quite a few. We got quite a few overseas. Yeah, man, that's not a matchup that I'm not looking forward to by any means. All right, let's talk about Brock Purdy for a second. I don't know about you. I feel like Brock Purdy's going to return this week. I mean, he practiced all last week, but he didn't end up playing. I feel like this week, if he practices all week, he should end up playing.
I hope
Mac
not.
Jones, well, we'll talk about it. But Mac Jones hurt himself again. He's got a knee contusion on top of already a sprained PCL on top of the oblique. Like he's got a lot of injuries, and he's out there playing. I feel like at some point, man, you just gotta play. Like you got paid a lot of money. I get it. You want to be 100%. If you practice 2 weeks in a row, like you got to get your butt out there. The other quarterback in Mac is out there just toughing it out with backup money, playing week in and week out, trying to set you up and keep your season alive. I feel like you got to play. And if he doesn't play this week and Mac starts again, I'm saying just shut him down, man. Give the season to Mac. Like that's the way that I feel about it. You say you don't want Brock to play. Why don't you want Brock to play this week?
The turf monster, man. I
Hmm.
just, like coming back and playing on the turf. I don't know. We've just seen too many injuries for the 49ers on that MetLife Stadium. It's just, PTSD, I guess, when it comes to that. So I would much rather him, but then he's coming back against the Rams. So it's like, do you want him to build that confidence against the Giants or potentially, right? Because it's not like the Giants don't have a great defensive line. But yeah, I mean, I'm in two minds. Like, look, we saw what Minnesota's doing, right? They worked Carson Wentz to the bone, where now he's out for the season because of how many injuries he was playing with, and I guess they're kind of doing that with Mac Jones as well. Um, I think if Mac Jones is playing with a knee contusion and oblique injury and things like that, you got to trot out whoever gives you the best chance to win. Just like people were mentioning, right? The loss to the Giants really puts you in a bad situation. So if Brock Purdy is the healthier of the two quarterbacks, you got to get Brock Purdy out there. And I do think that Brock Purdy needs the Giants game to be able to have his best foot forward against the Rams. So I was saying, I hope he doesn't, just because, jokingly, because of the turf. But if he's healthy, I think he needs to be out there. He needs to get the reps. He needs to help, reinvigorate this offense. And for a lot of people, they go out there. I know the narrative is that Mac Jones is outplaying Brock Purdy and all that kind of stuff. I do think that Brock Purdy's mobility. I do think that Brock Purdy's quick release and things like that uh, are better than Mac. And I hope that he's learning, some of the decisions that Mac has been making. I think if Brock makes some of those decisions as well, I think Brock's the better quarterback. I think that the offense will look better with Brock Purdy there because he can make, those wow plays with his feet. But hopefully he sat back and learned maybe some of those decisions that he makes that hurt the team, that if he could eliminate those or minimize those, this offense could take off with Brock Purdy as quarterback. We've seen it before.
I kind of tend to agree with the second part of that. I don't think coming back against the Rams is the right thing to do either, because you talk about a good defensive line. Now, I think Brock is going to be fortunate because he's going to come back when Ricky Pearsall is probably back, maybe even Brandon Ayuk. So that certainly will help things for sure. But let's say he comes back against the Rams. That's a division game, not a must win by any means, but it's one that you want to get. If he loses, especially if he's got more weapons than what Mac had going into that game with the Rams. Remember, Jawan Jennings didn't even play in that game. I'm pretty sure Jawan Jennings was even out of that one. So it was like Bourne, Demarcus Robinson, and who the hell ever else. Marquez Valdez Scantling, who's not even on the team anymore.
Right. No
Those were the
Kittle.
receivers. No Kittle. Those were the receivers he had. So, and he won on the road. So if Brock comes back and has Ayuk and Pearsall and Kittle and loses to the Rams, a lot of people are going to talk, myself included. So be ready for that one. So yeah, I don't know that that's ideal. I think that Brock should probably come back, get his confidence back against another good defensive line for sure. But this is a very winnable game for the 49ers. They should be favored. They should win this game regardless, whoever's at quarterback. And so if that's the case, plus right now you're coming off of a Mac Jones loss. If Mac Jones plays again and they beat the Giants, all of a sudden he's 5-2. And then if you come in and you lose and you're 1-2, can get pretty dicey, especially if he doesn't play well. So I don't know, man. I would say that he should play this week. If he's even 85% healthy, he needs to get out there because we know that Mac is not close to 85%. He's got a ton of injuries. And at some point, man, you got paid a lot of money. You got to get your butt out there. If you're practicing 2 weeks in a row, that's enough for me to see you on the field. That's the way that I see it.
Yeah, I don't think he's thinking about all the stuff you're talking about Mac
Oh,
Jones.
I don't think
and
so
all
either.
that. Like,
No.
I
I
think
don't think so
those
either.
aren't going to be going into anybody's decision making on the team. Ultimately, I think it's just about health, but he has sat out quite a bit. I think that if his foot feels good, like you mentioned, he played 2 weeks straight. He should be out there, right? He gives us the best chance to win based off of him being QB1, and with Mac Jones and Kendrick Bourne have chemistry based off of they've played together before, right? But Brock Purdy's played with all of these guys. He's better with Jennings. He's better with Kittle. He's better with Ayuk. Pearsall obviously is going to be new, but he looked pretty good with Pearsall when Pearsall was out there too. So I think that chemistry can help this offense, and I think that ultimately Kyle Shanahan will be able to open up his playbook a little bit more with Brock Purdy there. So yeah, I think we ultimately want, like you mentioned earlier, Jesse, you said we don't know what this team is, right? Because ultimately the team that we're seeing right now isn't what we think the team is going to look like 2 weeks from now when everybody comes back. We need to start seeing those pieces come back, start playing together, gel together, because ultimately they eventually have to decide, or they have to start creating kind of an identity going into the last half of the season, where ultimately they're going to have to make a playoff push based off of how competitive the NFC is, right? Like we see every team loses a game that they shouldn't have lost. They could go from bona fide playoff contender to out of the playoff picture, right? That's how competitive the NFC is. So everybody's going through those pressures, and we just want the team we want to see what kind of this team is when everybody gets on the field. So Brock Purdy is that first piece.
Yeah, absolutely. I get it. I totally understand also why people are worried about the MetLife turf. I mean, it's disastrous. It takes ACLs like nobody's business. So I get it. I totally do. But you're either healthy or not. You either can play or you can't. You can't factor in that turf into your decision making on whether you play or you don't play. So if he's healthy enough, then he needs to get out there, in my opinion. And we'll see. We'll see if he's out there this week. If you had to guess, you think he plays or no?
I'll say yes.
I agree. You think Pearsall plays?
I say no.
Oh, interesting.
I don't think the injury that Pearsall has, you don't play that on turf as your first game back. I don't think he
Especially
plays.
this turf. Yeah,
Right.
probably. That was probably not a good idea. I totally get it. Okay, all right, fair enough. Okay, I think they're both gonna play. We'll see. We'll see how it goes, but I think they both play. All right, listen. If you are, let's just support the 49ers. NFC West Roundtable's next. Type in NFC West Roundtable. It's going to show up at 9:00. I'm going to be over there representing the 49ers. We're going to be talking about the whole division, previewing next week's game, recapping the 49ers game from this week, talking about the trades that have gone down. So come show some love. Sunil, as always, thank you so much for joining me on these Tuesday evenings. I love this show. Everybody in the chat, thank you so much for your support. I'll be back tomorrow with Behind Enemy Lines at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. And until then, much love. Peace.